Trump was truthing all over the place recently on Truth Social. He was truthing and retruthing, and
It's such a bad name for a site. It's like in movies when they have like fake search engines that are just like words like search a puss or something, like, you know,
right.
A search octopus. That's like, it's obviously not a real site, and this is what it sounds like, Truth Social.
It's like a fake, also, you know, high school football team in some, you know, teen CW show as well, version of a social media site. That's how I feel about Truth Social.
Exactly.
And even in the way that it's phrased, it's so overly earnest that it's just suspicious in and of itself, and it should be. But there's basically one user that matters, and that is the Don himself, Trump. He went on Truth Social to hit Ron DeSantis again. Again, the Cold War is over and the hot war begins. Goes on Truth Social. Here's what he had to say. Now that the election in Florida is over and everything went quite well, shouldn't it be said that in 2020, I got 1.1 million more votes in Florida than Ron D got this year? Ron D is just... he doesn't even give a shit. 5.7 million to 5.6 million. Just asking. Million. Oh, sorry. 5.7 million to 4.6 million. Just asking. So he's taking a victory lap because he crunched the numbers, and he got 1.1 million more votes than DeSantis in a presidential election than DeSantis did get in Florida doing a gubernatorial race. And like, just to reiterate what I was saying before, I really do think it depends on when Trump announces it. It seems like the Republican Party powers that be in the brass are encouraging him to wait to announce his candidacy until after the Georgia runoff is over on December 6th. Thank God that they've shortened that time period to 4 weeks, by the way. But I don't know what he's going to do, and if he's going to listen to anybody. There's a very good chance that he does not, because he doesn't care about the Republican Party more broadly. But Herschel's his guy, so I don't know, maybe. But like, as I was just saying, once DeSantis and Donald Trump get on stage together, I just feel like it's going to be immensely clear who the real deal is for the Republican voter. These people who are writing Trump's obituary now just because of these proxy candidates that are not representative of Trump at all, because Trump is the person that the voters actually are drawn to, not like anybody that he's endorsing opportunistically. It's just not something that you can delineate. It's not, there's no equivalence to, you know, to Trump himself. That none of the electoral success of his endorsements matter. It just doesn't for his candidacy more broadly. I like Trump's chances against DeSantis a lot.
Yeah, it matters for the Republican Party. It doesn't matter for him. In the sense that,
and that's why it's overstated in the press, is because that's the people who are speaking to them. They're trying to will it into existence.
Yeah, because like Dr. Oz losing, or for example, just as an example, is like, yes, of course he does not have the juice that Trump has. That seems obvious
in a general. Like,
yeah,
but again, and this is why this is so dumb. We're maybe in the general, Trump is going to be a liability. I have no question about that. No question over at all. But in a primary, that's not what we're talking about here.
Who does the base want to come out and vote for the presidential primary?
I don't think that Ron DeSantis plays outside of Florida and maybe Texas. I think that Ron DeSantis, you know, he plays to Florida, he plays to Texas, you know, some of the Joe Rogan types who imagine themselves to be a little better than Trump, who imagine themselves to not be that kind of, you know, at least if they acknowledge that he's a bigot, imagine themselves to be a little different than that, when in reality, they're not. They're at least not the entirety of their base, and most of them are just pretending to be. And so he won't play outside of Florida. You know, they'll be lucky if Trump shows up to those debates, because then people will watch them. If Trump chooses to do what he did last time and just do like parallel like rallies in the same state, then who's going to watch Ron DeSantis debate some guy from South Carolina, to debate, I don't know, Marco Rubio? Like, no one's going to watch. And, you know, and then you'll just look even worse. I think that you're right, though. In the general, the Republican Party has been very much divided by this anti-vaxxer thing, which Trump is not probably going to sign on to. just generally. They've been divided by a few of Trump's other positions that he's probably not going to move on. And so like it might just be a liability in general, like you're saying, because there are so many people who are carved off because of that. But I don't think that any Republican right now has the ability to defeat Trump in the general election. They spent the past, they spent 4 years sucking up to him.
All right. I feel like a lot of people who are pushing this idea that Ron DeSantis has a chance are really not factoring in the fact, and you guys alluded to this earlier. You mentioned it earlier. Outside of Florida, he's not going to do very well probably. But also, I think people are undermining the inability for him to cross over. Like people are just going to hear him speak. Like I don't know if people who are familiar with Ron DeSantis has seen his speeches or him talking. He's not very good.
He's like, Ron DeSanctimonious, you might say.
Yeah, he's not very like. Could you imagine and I think Trump would actually do a debate because he would know that he would outperform Ron DeSantis. I could see him not wanting to do a debate with the Dem candidate. But in the primaries, he absolutely will want to. And, Ron DeSantis will make some point and actually try to be factual. Like we saw in 2016, someone would point, one of these, idiot Republicans who thought the base cared about this sort of stuff would try to point out some fact where Trump was wrong. And they'd be there with a shit eating grin after dropping that fact. And Trump would just go, "You're an idiot. You're weak."
Nice tie, dumbass.
Trump,
Trump, who was he? He insulted someone's looks in 2016.
I think it was Jeb.
Everybody?
Christie.
Well, it was definitely Jeb.
I mean, he was doing everything and anything, but particularly he was saying my penis is bigger than yours.
He was like, I have a bigger
look at
dick
my
than all of you.
hands.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they
People's
want.
moms, people's wives, children.
Because
it was a bloodbath.
It was the best part of that election cycle.
Because I think a big thing that we've obviously discussed, and I think David Roth from Defector makes this point all the time, which is Trump is a little bit of a fantasy for people who are his support. It's his base voter being oh, I love this guy who is a rich asshole who says whatever he wants with no consequences. That's what they're they would want their Westworld to be that, where they could just literally punish people and be the biggest asshole imaginable with no consequences. They see themselves in Trump.
He kind of LARPs as an everyman's billionaire, and he's not even a billionaire, but that is what he going around trash talking, speaking like an everyman, and he's on TV, he's visible.
Yeah, it's almost not even the money. It's the way he talks to people and does not have any responsibility for it. The other thing that a lot of people on Twitter get at that you were just alluding to, Binder, is like Jamel Bowie said this a lot. It's just Trump at least is charismatic. Trump has some sort of sway to him rhetorically. DeSantis, with respect, is a weird little freak. He's whiny, he's kind of disarming and strange when he talks. He's not very, he doesn't have a lot of range when he speaks rhetorically. It's kind of one cadence, one tone, and it just always seems like he's complaining about something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he literally walked up to that campus and yelled at those kids on mic to take their masks off.
And he's blown his He's blown through all of his stunts already before the primaries.
And it's November 2022.
I know.
He's got a long way to go.
If he was actually smart, if Trump runs in 2024, which I think we could all agree he's most likely going to do, DeSantis would just sit this one out. He's in his 40s, right?
Right.
He's got his whole
45.
You're right, Binder, but this is the ego that's coming into play, and you read about how he's always been this way from his origins at a elite private school teaching kids in Georgia and going to high school parties. Look it up. It's real. He is as arrogant as it gets, and there's an entire media apparatus that's desperate for Trump not to be the nominee that has been saying, this is our guy, this is the Trump without the baggage, and there's just too much momentum for a guy with that kind of ego to back away.
Last night last night really I think set the stage for it. If DeSantis didn't outperform everybody, I think Binder's right. He would just let Trump go, but now everybody is thirsty. Rufo, everybody's saying look how great Ron DeSantis is. We need a strong leader. Everybody else is these is losers who aren't strong enough, and so they want the new daddy. But I think DeSantis, it's going to be hard for him not to follow that.
I would say they definitely want someone besides Trump, but they wanted someone besides Trump in 2016.
That's
You
true.
know, and how much of this is just the kind of audiences they brought to the debate? Some, you know, how much of this is just like the media's reaction to him? But and some of those debates, the audience booed and he cowed them too. And a part of that is just because Republicans like mentality is like a cuck mentality. They have been taught to be subordinate to people who they have been taught have the right to demand their subordination. And Trump just happens to fill that suit perfectly.
Yeah,
You know, a lot of them will get in line.
The
Billionaire,
tough talker.
aggressive. You know, he fits that personality type where he's like, you know, the alpha male to them, despite a lot of obvious things, you know, that make one not want to emulate him. And so a lot of them will just be cowed by his presence and they'll just fall in line like they did the last time. You know, Fox News did not want Trump to be president in 2016. They were going after him in the beginning too, and they got in line. And to the point where like he just, you know, he was calling in, no like live stream at all, just like on the cell phone on his way to me, like, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, the Republicans are just despite their protest to the contrary, they are just begging to be stomped on. They're begging to be tread on by somebody, and Trump is going to tread on them again. And then like maybe a few of them will find some self-respect, find some dignity, and not vote for him in the general election. And that'll probably be why he loses, you know, but like certainly they're not going to be able to like cow him. They don't have it in them.
No, I agree wholeheartly. But we'll see. I'm quite curious about the timeline of the announcement. He wanted to do it in a week. Now he's being told what he can and cannot do. Will he listen? He has in the past in terms of staying away in terms of some races where, you know, the Republicans trying to pivot in the general. But
it's just interesting because he's feeling the pressure of DeSantis, you can tell. But now the difference is like he's getting the perception of a loser. Mm-hmm. Like that didn't exist before. Like, I mean, and if you look closely, you could tell like, oh, he endorses a lot of people who suck now, but now everyone's talking about like Trump's candidates suck. And like, if he's a loser,
you're less convinced than me. It's just, I mean, not to characterize your position on it, just seems that way. Is that true? Is that accurate?
I guess from my position, it's just like Trump's products has always kind of sucked. You know, Trump steaks, Trump hotels, and it's less about the actual quality of the product and more about the fact that they want it, that they want his name, that they want to be associated with him, that I think he finds his value in, and he's always found his value in it. And I think, you know, if they want it to stick that he's a loser, they have to stop running to him for approval. But they've been doing that for so long and for the much needed boost that they don't know how to. I think that, you know, at least a decent portion of their party.
And I just think that, like, the fact that he's now getting, or at least perceives that the loser stink is being placed on him, it makes him way more likely to run. And I think that dissipates quickly. It's about the vibes, and he, for the Republican voter, gives off winner vibes. And what he can just say is like, well, they didn't run on like the election being stolen, and that's why they're
it's like he can always
the data on that is getting clearer now too, that the more people like were election deniers or Jan 6ers, like it hurts them. And like
not in the primary.
I agree.
Not in the primary,
I do think like they're not going to be able to that's why it's so interesting, because the rationale is there, but the sort of strength of character is definitely not, and the base is absolutely still with Trump.
But this is all primary stuff, and I agree with you, Emma, in that regard, in the sense of, I basically think in terms of primaries, both for Trump and for his candidates, that's who will go out. That's who people will come out for.
That's the tension.
But the problem for the Republican Party writ large is that does not translate to general election success. The candidate that's running, that's the second most successful right now in terms of vote share after Mark Kelly in Arizona is not Katie Hobbs, the gubernatorial candidate. It's Adrian Fontes, the Secretary of State candidate, who's running well ahead of Mark Fincham, the Republican candidate, who was like at January 6th and basically pledging to not certify the results in Arizona. Like, it's a terrible position for them to be in, because they know they need Trump to galvanize their base and galvanize the real heads in the Republican Party. But then you get out of there, and you have to have, and then you're relying on everyone else who's not in that camp.
I mean, I agree. I think the small brain play here is to have Ron DeSantis as VP choice, but the galaxy brain play for Trump here is to make Kanye his VP choice, and then he wins.
Yes,
and then you don't show up to any debates, you just win.
Always.
the defense rests.